Hello everybody, this is Donnie with Pvgna.com. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today, let's talk about how imbalanced the Dota 2 map is. If you've been playing the game for a long time, you'll probably remember the infamous Dyer advantage. Back in the day, when Roshan was on the bottom half of the map, he was in a clearly Dyer advantageous position. It allowed Dyer to control the area around Roshan better, and resulted in a much higher win rate because Roshan is one of those very important objectives that allows you to actually end the game. The advantage was so large that Valve ended up changing the map, and we have Roshan now in his new location that we're all familiar with today. Since that change, we've experienced a few periods where it seemed like Radiant was stronger and others where Dyer appeared to still be king. However, with DAC just wrapping up, statistician Knoxville tweeted that Radiant showed a 59.3 win rate in the tournament. And when it was normalized for skill, that means taking into account how good the teams were that were playing in a particular game, it showed an even larger 64.1% advantage for the Radiant side of the map. That's a really big deal. And it goes in contrast of the sort of public opinion that Dyer should be stronger because of this famed creep camp triangle that popular heroes such as Gyrocopter and previous patches Medusa were able to efficiently farm. You can see the triangle here. After all, isn't more efficient farming supposed to weigh pretty heavily in winning the game? To better understand why the supposed farming advantage for Dyer isn't translating into a higher win rate, let's take a look at the map as we normally experience it in a game of Dota. Most games start off something kind of like this, with 3 clearly defined lanes and 3 clearly defined matchups. Sometimes it's a 3-1-1 setup, and more recently we've been seeing a lot of 2-1-2s and even 1-2-2 setups, or 1-1-3 setups in the professional scene. At this point, it's pretty easy to define the map control for both teams. Radiant controls the bottom left triangle of the map, whereas Dyer controls the top right triangle of the map. This is at the start of the game before any towers have fallen. As we skip ahead now, and we're looking at a game between Mineski and LGD from the DAC, we see that LGD performs one of the most common moves in professional Dota. They bring their safe lane hero, a troll warlord, their carry to the bottom lane, and even rotate their mid hero to create an overwhelming strength advantage in this part of the map. This allows them to push down the safe lane tower, and we can immediately see that disregarding the Radiant wards, Dyer now has extended their map control pretty significantly. If we were to draw a line around what Dyer can pretty safely control, it now includes a large portion of the Radiant jungle. And at this point, let's briefly talk about shrines. Radiant's main jungle shrine is still in play in this particular example, but I would like to define the map control that a shrine provides as soft, because it doesn't actually give you any vision. It allows you to TP in and reinforce that area, but because there is no vision provided, it's much different than what map control is provided by a tower, which actually gives you true sight vision. So while Radiant's shrine still stands, we can generally favor the Dyer team in this area of the map. As we skip ahead a bit further, we can see that Ice Ice Ice, Mineski's offlaner, pushes the Dyer top tower. LGD elects not to defend it and decides to continue to play around sort of their map control in the bottom half of the map. Once this tier 1 safe lane tower falls, however, we can immediately witness the map control dynamics of the game shift. Let's draw a new line to divide what is more comfortably controlled by each team at this point in the game. We can see that the map is now basically divided vertically in half, and the side that Radiant controls includes the Rosh pit. This is very significant, because Roshan is arguably the most important objective in the game when trying to progress towards actually ending a match. Let's also take a moment to look at the clustering of buildings on each side of the map. On both sides, the safe lane tier 1 tower is pretty isolated from any reinforcements, although it's pretty clear that the Dyer safe lane is even more isolated than the Radiant one. We can also see that the Dyer offlane tower is a bit more isolated than the Radiant offlane tower in terms of spacing from the shrine in the tier 2. Additionally, we can see that reinforcements to the Dyer offlane tower can be spotted from the 3 potential locations, the tier 1, the tier 2, and the shrine, with one single ward here on the high ground. While the Radiant offlane tower needs at least 2 wards to spot incoming reinforcements from those same potential locations. This is very important because when you're defending towers, it's really important to not all TP to the same tower because it extends the TP length and means that heroes kind of trickle into a fight instead of all appearing simultaneously. All of this equates to just being easier to take the Dyer offlane tower than the Radiant one, and we can already see that the Radiant side is more important because of its Roshan control in the first place. But let's go back to the vertical split of the map. Once both safe lane tier 1s are down, the most common scenario is for the position 1 hero on either side to spend most of their time around where the enemy tier 1 used to be. This farming hero tends to split push that side of the map and control it by keeping creep pressure in that lane while farming the jungle around it. On the Dyer side, this means that the bottom lane is being pushed and the Dyer team will tend to be playing around that area. Basically what this means is that their momentum is actually taking them away from the Roshan pit on a regular basis, and Rosh control in general, while the Radiant team is actually continually going towards the Roshan pit and controlling the area of the map around the Rosh pit. This is doubly important because to control this area of the map, the team has to dedicate resources like heroes and wards to actually make it safe for their heroes to be there. And this means that Dyer is basically dedicating the same amount of resources for less gain. If the Dyer team were to use their good vision in the Radiant jungle and take a fight and win it, if they then wanted to transition that one fight into taking Roshan and pushing towers off of the Aegis, they would have to shift their entire map control to a different part of the map. And this takes time, it takes more resources, maybe they don't even have the wards to do it. And if the Radiant team were to win a fight in the Dyer jungle, they would already have all of the vision in place to be able to go immediately into the Roshan pit and safely take the Rosh. What this means is that if the Radiant team has a good early game, it is much easier for them to take that momentum and snowball it into a mid-game advantage and potential win, whereas the Dyer team, even with that same good early game, essentially has to give up that map control to take advantage of their early momentum. They have to give up the Radiant jungle, they have to set up wards around the Radiant offlane and Radiant offlane shrine area and control that part of the map, despite having gained momentum through controlling the Radiant safe lane side of the map. So when you consider that Dota is a game of efficiency, this Radiant advantage makes a lot of sense. Dyer team has to basically allocate more resources to accomplish the same thing than Radiant does, based on the natural progression of how Dota is being played currently. So what are some things that you could do to play around this weird advantage? On the Dyer side of the map, there are two very important points of control that can help you experience the same sort of map control advantage that Radiant gets naturally. Number one, take the Radiant offlane tower as quickly as possible and get wards in these areas. This cliff is dewarded really often, so I would actually prefer to put wards here and here. Both of these wards give you Rosh control because it allows you to see reinforcements coming to the shrine or coming up the ramps from the base to contest the Rosh. It also gives you vision of any hero trying to go to the secret shop or farm in this area or reinforce the area with a shrine TP. The second point is that you must defend the Dyer tier 1 mid at all costs. Dyer's control of the Rosh pit area hinges entirely on this tier 1 being alive. With the tier 1 there and the main jungle shrine, Dyer can pretty safely contest the Rosh pit area, and Dyer actually holds an advantage in terms of speed of reinforcement to this area if they have taken the tier 1 on the Radiant side offlane. This is because the Dyer main jungle shrine and tier 1 mid are closer together than the Radiant tier 1 mid and Radiant offlane shrine. One final point is that the vision options for Dyer are actually much better than the Radiant ones for controlling the Roshan pit. So you can be more creative with where you ward and get better results for each ward as long as the Dyer tier 1 mid is still standing. So what do you all think about that? Does this theory make sense to you? How do you feel in your games about Radiant versus Dyer? Let me know in the comments below and let me know if you enjoyed this video. As always, good luck, have fun, and go win some MMR.